Congress is back from a 7-week vacation, and they're still ignoring Merrick Garland. Of course, that's Obama's Supreme Court pick. Now, let's just reflect on the idea that they had a 7-week vacation. Wouldn't you love a 7-week vacation? Wouldn't that be dandy? And by the way, these are the same people where half of them like to lecture the American people. You lazy moochers, parasites, get a job, assholes. They get so much time off, it's ridiculous. But when it comes to Merrick Garland, they've said from the beginning, we're going to block him. That's what we're going to do. We're going to block him, and we're going to block him for a historic amount of time. We're going to break the record, and we don't give a fuck. That's what we're going to do. Well, now Harry Reid decided to fight back, and he said the following, quote, "To show the Americans disgust with how the Republicans have treated Merrick Garland's nomination, as of today, we're objecting to the committee's meeting in line with the rules of the Senate." So, in other words, what he's doing is he and the Democrats are going to block as many committee hearings as humanly possible to try to stop all business until they say, okay, you know what, we're going to have the hearing on Merrick Garland. Now, is this a move that generally would be a fantastic move from the Democrats because it shows they grew a fucking backbone and they decided to fight a little bit? Oh, sure. Great. I'm happy to see the Democrats finally fight for something, even if it's way too late and even if it's on the wrong topic. And that's the main point here. Merrick Garland is a centrist judge. And I'm being fairly kind, maybe a center-right judge. On criminal justice issues, he's fairly conservative. So that makes me scared about Fourth Amendment cases. That makes me scared about drug laws. That makes me scared about due process. What he ruled when it came to Guantanamo was super questionable. He ruled basically against due process for people at Guantanamo. That's unacceptable. Now, he may be liberal on some social issues, whatever it happens to be, abortion to name one, probably gay rights to name another. But on money in politics is another issue where he's so-so. He's for transparency in some cases, but it doesn't appear like he is against Citizens United in its totality. So this guy is on some issues with the Democrats, on some issues with the Republicans, but this is the guy Obama picked because the Republicans are so insane that they're like, no, we're not going to let anybody. Not going to happen. I'm not going to prove anybody. So Obama's like, okay, whatever. Here's a guy who you should like, who, by the way, other Republicans have praised vociferously in the past. So he puts him up there, and then they're still like, no. But I warned you at the time, and I told you at the time, eventually, over time, a little bit of pressure on them, a few people within the Republican ranks breaking, and we know there's already been at least 3 people in the Republican ranks who've broken and said, I will hear it out, and I'll probably end up supporting Garland. And then they will flip. They will be in favor of putting Garland on the Supreme Court. And then at the end of it all, the Democrats turn around and go, aha, we got you. But no, you didn't really get him. The Republicans can turn around and go, aha, we got you. Because think about it. When you have Republican presidents, who do you get? People like fucking Justice Scalia. That's who you get. Those are your judges. Clarence Thomas, Justice Scalia, super duper far right-wing justices. And then when you have Democrats, who do you get? You get people like Merrick Garland. You get people who are centrist or center-right. When do we ever get an actual liberal justice? Now, don't get me wrong. I don't want to besmirch, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I don't want to besmirch Elena Kagan or Sotomayor. They've actually been pretty good since they've been on the court. But they're not the end-all, be-all. They're not the left's Scalia. You know what I mean? Somebody who's like an unapologetic liberal and is like, bitch, come at me. That's what Scalia was for the right. There is no equivalent of that on the left. Even Ruth Bader Ginsburg, in some cases, has been known to, toe the line for corporate America. This court is overwhelmingly pro-corporate America. Even the liberals on the court are. So my point is to Harry Reid, if you guys are going to finally fight and grow a backbone, why would you not fight and grow a backbone and make it for a justice who is actually liberal? They don't do it because they never do it because that's who the Democrats are. That's who they are. They got no fight in them for actual liberal values. They just don't. I mean, look at the healthcare battle is another perfect example of this. The actual progressive position, liberal position is what? Medicare for all, single payer. They were in favor of that for roughly 2.6 seconds. Then they go, okay. Not that, but maybe a public option? Then they fought for the public option for 2.5 days. And they're like, okay, fine, we're going to give you an individual mandate reform. So in other words, a free market reform where we force everybody by law to buy private insurance on the private market, and then you guys will like that, right? And they should, because that's a plan that Richard Nixon was in favor of. That's a plan that Newt Gingrich and Chuck Grassley supported in the 90s. That's a plan that right-wing think tanks like the Heritage Foundation wrote policy papers on, and they said this is our response to single payer, which the Democrats want. So by the end of it, the Democrats had just proposed a Republican policy, and they still didn't get any Republicans to vote for it. But that's in the nature of Democrats. Like, if the Republicans are going to slap you in the face no matter what, and even if they flip, they're voting for their own original policy, so they got you either way, why would you not stand up and fight for the things that are actually liberal? But they don't do it, and they don't do it because they don't want to do it, because they're not really all that liberal. I mean, there's a handful of them. You know, you could argue Bernie Sanders is liberal, Elizabeth Warren is liberal, Alan Grayson was liberal, he's not even in there anymore. Keith Ellison, some people in the Progressive Caucus. But overwhelmingly, these are corporate sellouts, these are centrists, and this is the result that we get. We have to fight to get a judge on the court who the Republicans should adore. Well, how about we don't fight their battles for them? How about we unapologetically plant a flag in the ground by liberalism and say, no, if you don't support our person, we're just going to destroy you, and it's going to be a landslide in the next election for all Democrats, and I'm going to fight until we have a supermajority and we can get an even more liberal justice in there. How you like them apples? So either vote for this liberal justice, or we destroy you in framing, and we destroy you in campaigning, and then we get an even more liberal justice. Which one you want? You want a liberal now or a more liberal person later? I'll leave it up to you. That's how you fight, and they wouldn't do that fight for a real liberal. They do a little bit of a fight for a weak centrist or center-right guy like Merrick Garland.